So my wife wakes me up the other day at dark 30 and tells me that the horns on our Dodge Dakota were going off. So I go out back, pop the hood, feel around, it's pitch dark, find the horns and unplug them and go back to bed. When I get up, I find the relay for the horn. It's under the hood in the little relay box next to the battery. And I pull the relay out and then I put it back in. I could hear the relay, I could feel the relay click as I pulled out and put it back in. So it tells me the relay is probably not stuck. It's somewhere with the horn button itself or in that part of the system. So let's go find out what it is. The first thing you want to do when you're working around the steering wheel and the horn is to disconnect the battery and let the truck sit for a while to discharge any capacitors or anything in the system. And the reason why you want to do this is you don't want the airbag to accidentally go off. You can also disable it by removing the fuses to the airbag. I'm saying removing, but that's not really what you do. These fuses are a little different. You kind of got these deals you pinch on, you pull them up, and they pull out of their sockets, but they'll still sit inside the fuse block. So I disconnected the battery and I disconnected the fuses. This way, hopefully I won't inadvertently set off the airbag. And before you do that, make sure your steering wheel is centered with your wheels facing forward. It's a pretty simple job. You got to remove the plastic trim below the steering wheel. Just 3 screws that hold it, and it got little pins that set in from the top. Then you need to remove the plastic covers around the steering column itself. There are 3 screws that hold that on. There are 2 bolts with 8mm heads that secure the horn assembly. You get to them from behind the steering wheel. In the case of the non-cruise control one that has nothing basically on the steering wheel, I could get these off with a 8mm combination wrench. On the donor vehicle that had all the bells and whistles, these bolts were recessed in, and I had to use a little breaker bar with an 8mm socket and a small extension, and I had to move the steering wheel so that these bolts were at the bottom and one at the top. Other than that, they go on the same. A 21mm socket will remove the nut to hold the steering wheel on. And some cases you can wiggle and jiggle on the steering wheel and put pressure and get it to work off. In this case, I had to hook up a puller and pull it off. You got to pull the steering wheel off, and the clock springs will sit in here like so. It sits in place with little pins, and this one's actually broken. There'll be a pin here that goes in a hole right up here, and there's another bottom pin that goes in this hole. So I figured I was going to rob it off the clock spring for this Dakota out of a junk one. But my junk Dakota had a lot more wires than the one in the truck. My truck, it doesn't have cruise control or anything like that, and my donor one had all that. My donor may have a lot more wires, but the horn wire is still in the same place, and the airbag wire is still in the same place. So I was just going to use it and tuck the other wires aside, but it wound up being broken too. So I ordered a new clock spring. But my new clock spring has one additional wire. It'd be for cruise control or some other gadget that was on the steering wheel itself. But I do believe I can tuck this wire out of the way, because every place I found on the internet, it said this clock spring was for my truck, with my manual, completely manual truck. So I'm assuming they know there's going to be an extra wire. So I'm going to go ahead and install this clock spring and hope for the best. But before I put everything back together, it only makes sense for me to go ahead and test my horn button, which is part of the horn slash airbag assembly. So what I'm looking for is an open circuit. When I touch my leads together, it allows a path for electricity to flow from one lead to the other. And I check my meter by touching my leads, and this one's also got an alarm on it. I can hear it beeping, I can see it zero out, so I know I'm good. So what I don't want is when I touch from my back of my case to my horn wire, I don't want to hear that beep. So touching it, I show I have an open loop, which it should be when the horn is not being depressed. Now if I can find a way to shove my leads up on here, now that does bother me. I'm sensitive. I went out to my junker and I found this horn button slash airbag assembly, and as of so far it checks out good. So I'm going to put a lead on the wire. I'm going to touch my other lead to the metal case of it and hit the button. The multimeter beeps when I hit the horn button. I know you can't see me hitting it. So I'm assuming it's good. On my other one, I went ahead and took it apart even further. This is the horn button assembly. The airbag was sitting in front of it. Took the 4 10mm bolts off and I pried back on the rubber, and I took the airbag assembly out. This one will beep when you hit it, and then it'll continually beep, and sometimes it won't beep at all. So this one is intermittent. It works when it wants and it beeps as long as it wants. So this is probably the main part of my problem. But like I said, the clock springs, I still think it's a good idea to replace them. Well, they're cracked. Now, did I crack them taking them apart, or were they already cracked? I'm going to put everything together now. Hopefully I'll be all right. I ran the drill through the 2 holes where the clock spring sits, just out of curiosity if the plastic from the old clock spring was broke off in there, and it was broke off in both holes. But I do believe the holes are clear now. When you put the new clock spring in, make sure it goes all the way in. Like I said, I drilled out the holes and I got the old plastic pieces out. I couldn't see them. I just assumed they may be there, so I ran the drill in, and thank goodness I did. But even after that, getting this clock spring to go all the way down it took some playing with. And you got this pin goes in the hole right here, and this piece of plastic drops down far enough to latch around behind to a little groove back in here. So now it's held in. You got the same thing on the bottom. So play with it. Assume that you don't have it all the way in yet. You need to look up underneath here to make sure it drops in. And it is in. If you're installing a used clock spring on your truck, you need to make sure the centerpiece of the clock spring, which rotates inside the outer piece, is centered. And the way you do that is you turn it all the way in one direction until it bottoms out. Then you turn it all the way in the other direction, counting the number of turns and partial turn until it bottoms out again. Divide that in 2, and then you turn it back that amount, and it should be centered. And to turn it, you need to push these little tabs right here in. There's one on each side. It's a two-handed job. If not, if you don't center it, you run the chance of the clock spring bottoming out before you're done turning your steering wheel, and you'll break it. And also these two tabs on the back, their location is pretty important because it has to do with where the turn signal canceller is. So you don't want to cancel your turn signal at the wrong point. The clock spring will come around and hit this at the right point, and it will cancel it. These come centered from the factory. This particular one would have a strap across there, kind of holding it at the center position. And I saw videos where some have like a little key that pops out that you pull out when you install it. You got this long pigtail with this yellow plug that's going to attach underneath here, but there's a plastic piece on the bottom of the steering column that you need to fish this through. Then it's going to plug in underneath the dash here. This is the plug for the airbag. This is that extra plug that I'm just going to tuck up underneath here once I put the horn on. And this is the plug for the horn. And the way this horn works is the horns are energized. When I push the horn button on the steering, it allows the system to ground. It grounds out the relay, which activates the horn. So that's the way most horns work. So next thing is put the steering wheel on. Steering wheel has master spline. You can only go on one way. I'm about to tighten this down. I use my 1/2-inch DeWalt portable impact wrench for that. There are 2 bolts with 8mm heads that secure the horn assembly. Torque your steering wheel bolt to whatever the specifications tell you, and torque everything else to whatever they tell you. I don't like to give out torques anyways in case something changes, or if you're doing it on a little bit different vehicle or something. And sometimes I just torque things tight. But that's me. That's not you. Do what you want. Thank you for watching yet another one of my cheesy YouTube videos. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. And remember, if you love life and learning new things, go aimless.com.